Turkey is back on the Formula One bill, and for many it's a long-awaited return. Having been off the calendar since the last race at the Istanbul Park circuit in 2011, it'll be the second consecutive anti-clockwise circuit on the schedule, following the previous Emilia Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. Standing at 5.338 kilometres long, or 3.3 miles in imperial speak, there's plenty of elevation changes and tough corners to really put the drivers through the ringer. Without further ado, here's your guide to the circuit. The first Turkish Grand Prix took place back in 2005 as part of the new wave of Hermann Tilke-designed circuits to join the calendar in the mid to late 2000s. And of course, its signature corner is the terrifying quadruple apex Turn 8. Now, it should be a breeze for the modern-day F1 car, but it'll be a true test of who has the most downforce going in. That opening 2005 race proved to be a tricky prospect for some of the drivers to handle. And although Giancarlo Fisichella snatched the lead from pole sitter Kimi Räikkönen at the start, the Italian driver's mistake on the exit of turn 10 gave Räikkönen a chance to claim his lead back, which he did into turn 12. In that race, Juan Pablo Montoya claimed the fastest lap. It's a 1 minute 24.770, which still stands as the quickest time today. But surely 2020's machinery will have something to say about that. But in those early days, the true master of the Turkey circuit was Felipe Massa, who claimed 3 wins on the bounce at Istanbul. Massa, qualifying on pole for the 2006 race, roared to his first Formula One victory, as Michael Schumacher duelled hard with Fernando Alonso amid the duo's battle for the title that year. But again, the circuit bit hard, especially into turn 1. It was a multi-car pile-up, with Fisichella spinning at the opening turn and setting off a chain reaction. Räikkönen was gifted a puncture by Toro Rosso's Scott Speed, while the two Toyotas collided and turned Takuma Sato into Thiago Monteiro. Räikkönen, still with damage after his pit stop, went straight into the wall at turn 4. On pole once again in 2007, Massa charged off the line to hold the lead, while Räikkönen also scampered off the line past Hamilton to lay the foundations for a Ferrari 1-2. Well, those two ran off into the distance, leaving the rest of the field to do battle and grapple with Istanbul's ferocious bites. Fissi again came to blows at turn 1, punting countryman Jarno Trulli into a spin. And you'll never guess the pole sitter for 2008. Once again, Felipe Massa set the quickest qualifying time, joined this time on the front row by Heikki Kovalainen, and the Ferrari driver claimed another win as he fought with Lewis Hamilton for victory. And in parallel with Massa's 3 wins in a row, Fisichella came to grief at turn 1. Misjudging his braking, Fissi's Force India ploughed into the back of Kazuki Nakajima's Williams and left both of them with terminal damage in a very heavy overhead impact. Sebastian Vettel had pole in 2009 as Massa no longer had the equipment to challenge for victory, but a turn 9 mistake, a carbon copy actually of Fisichella's in 2005, gave Jenson Button the opportunity to steal the lead and begin his path to a 6th win from the first 7 races of the year. But Vettel's next appearance at Turkey was far more infamous. Battling for the lead with Red Bull teammate and title rival at the time Mark Webber, the two came to blows on the run out of turn 11. Webber and Vettel collided, with the latter being forced to retire, and handed McLaren an easy 1-2 as Hamilton and Button were hounding the two Red Bulls. Vettel atoned for that collision in 2011 and a practice crash in the wet as well, with a typical of the time dominant victory, making the 4-time champion the last driver to secure victory at Istanbul. Well, alongside previous winners Hamilton, Vettel and Räikkönen, Sergio Perez also raced in that 2011 race, while Daniel Ricciardo conducted FP1 duties for Toro Rosso during that weekend, in which he outpaced teammate Sebastian Buemi in wet conditions. Romain Grosjean won twice at the circuit back in his GP2 days, taking a sprint race win in 2008 and the feature race victory in his 2011 title year. And Valtteri Bottas had a 4th place finish in the 2011 GP3 season. That was his title-winning year. But the rest of the field have had very little contact with the Istanbul circuit. Well, unless, of course, Nico Hülkenberg, who did race there in 2010, makes yet another surprise return to the grid. So for the majority of drivers, Turkey will be an all-new experience for them to get their heads around. Across the starting line, the straight dips into the left-hander at turn 1, and the continuing downhill nature of the corner means it's very easy to brake too late and end up in the runoff. Turn 2 is a fast and sweeping right-hander, which hits a big dip before going back uphill and leaves Turn 3 relatively blind. It's very similar to Turn 4 at Hungary and should be the source of some close racing on the opening lap before the circuit hits a series of short, sharp, technical corners. The track drops downhill from Turn 4 and the driver has to bring the car right to the other side of the circuit to open up the next corner. Then it's time to open up the throttle and power through 6 and keep it on the throttle before the heavy braking zone into Turn 7. The corner gradually opens out and then it's time for one of F1's most infamous modern corners. It's Turn 8. This is all about picking the right gear, finding the right groove and keeping the foot on the throttle. Count each apex, there's 4 of them, and then once you're out of the 4th you can unwind the steering wheel and meander downhill into turns 9 and 10. The trick into turn 10 is to use as much of the exit runoff as you can without being penalised or going too far and losing time. The track has a small crest at the exit which then drops downhill once again, hitting a dip at the turn 11 kink before another uphill-downhill stretch, and that should yield plenty of overtaking as it cascades into turn 12. The final corners would generally be quite unexciting, a trio of low-speed turns taking the sting out of the circuit's tail, but the circuit's so wide there's plenty of chances to switch back and defend your position with careful car positioning. Then you're out of the final corner, take a little bit of curb before planting the throttle and crossing the line for another lap. Istanbul Park is an undulating, technical circuit which should challenge the drivers throughout the 58 laps and with DRS in the mix, could throw up plenty of overtakes and accidents.